Issue 178. We started with Tails' dad leading an angry mob of villagers to the king, saying that they'll have their freedom. This would be a lot easier to support if we weren't shown that Elias and his father were perfectly fine rulers. Of course, absolute monarchy and dictatorship are terrible systems not based at all on merit, but the lack of merit-based leader picking isn't going to change just because they decide on the leader based on a popularity contest. This whole campaign from him seems to come out of nowhere and make him less sympathetic, conspiring against the king who did nothing to him. And when he fought against Eggman for trying to remove the king's power just like he is. Sure, the band probably didn't have monarchy to live under, but still. Nicole looks sad, showing Sonic and a concerned-looking Tails and his mother video footage of what Amadeus is doing. Why do Tails and Rosemary look upset? They were acting like they were blindly supporting him earlier. Rosemary explains that because people have already had change moving to the Nanic City and are safe from Eggman there, now it's a good time for some change. And Sonic naturally points out, yeah, but you don't get that with an angry mob. Seriously, I thought this guy was a tactician. And then completely out of nowhere, Tails looks mad at him and starts to cry as Rosemary gets him outside resentfully. I say out of nowhere because we just saw Tails and Rosemary looking upset at what Amadeus was doing. And now just because Sonic insults Amadeus for pulling out a stunt like this, all of a sudden they turn on him? Nicole points out to Sonic why he's in trouble, and then she reveals out of nowhere that things have been tense between him and Sonic since he returned from space. Since then? What's she talking about? I could understand if she said since you started dating Fiona, but she didn't. So poorly written. Sonic dismisses her, saying they're practically brothers and everything's fine, smiling being wrong genre savvy while not wanting to believe anything's wrong. I wonder if Scourge reacted the same way with Miles having trouble with them. Sonic says he's going to see Knuckles, and Knuckles says despite some reasoning that he's going back to Angel Island alone because everyone's safe with the Force Field City and he can afford some damage control back home. Good point. The Chaotix, mainly Julie, all try to reason with Knuckles to let them come with them, saying that he needs help and it's their home too, but Knuckles stubbornly insists that he'll have his father to back him up, and he wants to patch things up with him anyways, which he can only do alone. I guess since he doesn't want the Chaotix to see his soft side. Knuckles explains to Sonic thankfully that the Guiding Star Gem is what he'll use to get himself home. Then after Sonic asks why he won't just take the gray Chaos Emerald they recovered from Knothole's ruins conveniently, Knuckles says, and lug it all over the island, so it could be stolen by one of the three warring factions? Good point. Never say that he's never clever. Why doesn't Julie have enough faith in him to make his Angel Island? The gem will just warp him there. What's with the if? Naturally, Elias is annoyed at how all the imprisoned criminals are acting like obnoxious little children. Except Ixis, who's still just hissing for some stupid reason. And for some reason, Moggle seems to suck up to Elias, telling everyone to quiet down or else face his telepathic retribution. I mean, I guess he is the most mature one in the room, so even he'd be annoyed by these guys. Then Elias says to Amadeus, who's rightfully in a cell, "Would you care to explain why you led a riot today?" Amadeus says, "I assure you, it was not personal." This is the kind of line a villain would say. And, "I've observed you for some time now." That's also pretty creepy. He says he thought Elias would listen to his people and insists it wasn't a riot. Naturally, Elias replies, "You had half the city calling me for to step down." How the hell did Amadeus turn so many people against the ruler that, as far as we know, didn't make any huge stupid decisions as the king? He was being compared to Robotnik, favorably for a really long time. Everyone is probably thinking, this is the good version of Robotnik. He's the good king. So why would they ever turn on him? Amadeus says to manipulate him into stepping down that he should do it if he has any love for his people, even though it's only half of them, so he'd just disappoint the other half. Amadeus complains that the royalty has led people into the Great War, ushered in Robotnik, and lost both Old Mobotropolis and Knothole. First of all, they didn't lead people into the Great War. The humans, the Overlanders, were much more to blame for that. Blame the Kintobor clan. Although it was the decision of the king to abolish all contact between Mobians and humans after his son was killed by a human, he wasn't intentionally doing it to lead into a great war. I mean, it was said that in the Knuckles comic, the history of the Acorn Kingdom had the Acorn Kingdom not really starting any wars. If the House of Acorns hadn't gone into the war, they would have been attacked by the humans and forced to fight back anyways, or else be taken over. Usher and Robotnik, I'll give him that, but they were desperate to win, and his engineering skill was useful to them. How are they supposed to know? And third, lost both Old Mobotropolis and Knothole. That wasn't the royalty's fault. That was Eggman, Robotnik. That has nothing to do with Sally and her family, you ungrateful dick. He then says some admittedly understandable points that the previous king's too sick to lead, and Elias has no experience with running a nation. He's getting some though, and he's new. What does he expect? By that logic, anyone who's new to running a country should be fired, and then nobody would run a country. You need to get experience to be experienced. And that kind of logic doesn't necessarily prove that kings are evil. It could apply to an inexperienced democratic leader too. Sadly, Elias doesn't have the backbone or motivation to properly tell him off for that rant right away and explain why he's wrong. I get it, democracy is a slightly better system, but we've never seen any indication of rulers of the Acorn Kingdom that were bad, evil, or even incompetent. It works fine. And this is not the time to be focusing on this right now. I like that Sonic thinks about the city, that while it's all made of nanites, at least Nicole controls them. And then he comforts Elias, who's feeling insecure about the fact that he spent all his life on Angel Island, and once cracked under the pressure of being a ruler, but is now the king. Sonic naturally points out that he's doing fine, and everyone's just tense after the invasion. He says everything will all blow over, but Elias says it won't, and he'd give it all to the people if it wasn't for his father. The king shows up, or rather Elias' father, and says that Elias is to round up the traitors and punish the ringleader. He plans to deal with Tails' father severely, as well as the rest of his co-conspirators. Naturally, Sonic asks him, Your former highness? Do you really want to try to arrest half the city? Yeah, maybe this is when the poisoning from earlier started showing signs of seeping into his brain. He's more easily stressed out and vengeful now. I'm not sure I want Tails' father to be punished that badly when he just got him back. That's not really fair to Tails, even if he is creeping me out. But this does prove that Amadeus had a point in mentioning that Elias' father is in no condition to rule, because while it seems like a moot point non sequitur when he's not in charge, it's shown here that he really is in charge. Elias isn't the real authority, he's a puppet. He's just doing what his father wants. He's too meek to be really a proper leader. Sonic is then asked by the king if he's one of the traitors, and he has to remind him who he actually is. After the king is irritating once again, although I can't blame him for sticking to tradition, especially when we haven't seen any evil or bad Acorn rulers. Sonic wonders whose side he should be on after that. Then at night, Tails flies to the detention center with Rosemary near him for some reason because the idea that he might be putting his mother in danger was too far from his brain, and he does some technology stuff, and then Nicole immediately catches him in a Diabolus Ex Machina. Why was she even here? Shouldn't you be in sleep mode right now? After Tails cuts some wires or something, Nicole seems to disappear. Then Moggle talks about his own history with Tails to his father and says he must be proud of what he has accomplished. Amadeus says he is, not showing any open hostility towards Moggle after he kidnapped his son to siphon his power. With Tails and Rosemary on the other end of the cell, they warn him of a potential civil war. Amadeus at least shows some decency, saying that he doesn't want the rest of his family imprisoned as well, and Tails irresponsibly says, why not? We're already deep enough into this. True, they can't turn back now. He says that he'll protect them while doing some more technology stuff, and Nicole appears to Sonic when he's sleeping. Of course, this leads to an awkward moment as Nicole looks sympathetically embarrassed when Sonic says, could you please knock next time? She apologizes, saying she's still adjusting to an organic life. I don't blame her for not thinking to cause any trouble. Nicole then makes another mistake because she doesn't tell Sonic he's breaking out Amadeus from prison in the first breath, and so Sonic runs off without knowing what he's getting himself into. Rosemary hugs Amadeus as he says she shouldn't have done this and thanks her anyways, and Rosemary says, I wrote the speech that got you in here, it's only right that I get you out. Sonic then shows up and points out looking concerned that he started a riot against the king, ma'am. That kinda counts as treason. He says that it's the wrong way to go about it, and breaking him out of jail isn't gonna help. Then Rosemary asks him how he's going to feel knowing that he kept Tails' father in jail. Sonic then says with a reassured, wrong John Rosati smile that while Tails' parents are his real family, he grew up with them, and the kid practically worships him, and insists that he'll get over it. I don't blame him for thinking this, normally it'd all be true. But unfortunately this gets Tails to the breaking point, as he punches him in the head telling him to get over himself. I expected an exclamation point in that sentence, considering what he's doing. It would have been better if I actually saw his fist making an impact. But instead we don't, and we just see the word wham where it hit. That's not satisfying. I gotta admit, I'm excited. Them having a fight is very refreshing, and there was tons of foreshadowing to this. Tails tells his parents to go while he keeps Sonic busy. Rosemary briefly shows loyalty to Tails by saying she doesn't want to leave him to fend for himself, especially considering who he's up against. But Amadeus tells her this is her only chance and they have to leave, and explains to her that he's more than capable after all of the time he fought villains. Sonic shows patience by admitting that, okay, it's her dad, so I could kinda let that slide, but you really need to move, Tails. Tails replies, no, never, never again, Sonic. Is this supposed to have a double meaning? Rosemary, running into the woods, says sadly that she swore she'd never leave her son behind again, and Amadeus says he doesn't like it either. Except she didn't really leave her son behind. She didn't choose to get abducted by aliens. Rosemary reasons that they should lay low for a while, but Amadeus is assertive and insists that they need to end this tonight, by starting another riot and getting thrown in prison again. Rosemary says that they can still enter the castle with little resistance because they'll be counting on Sonic alone. And Amadeus says they need to have Elliot step down, and they'll for some reason need to stop by the house briefly. Fang cheers to do it again after Sonic gets smacked into a glass wall, something you'd think would be a warning sign to Tails since a criminal is siding with them. By the way, I love that they thought to use glass walls instead of bars that Fang could slip between. Sonic says angrily, last chance, Furball, cut it out! It's weird that he calls his own little brother Furball. Isn't that kind of a slang against Mobians? Tails says, you had this coming, you jerk! I don't blame him for feeling this way. Sonic really should have been loyal enough to side with Tails over some royal family. It's just because of Sally, isn't it? The game Sonic, for what it's worth, would never do that. Moggle then has a line that made me giggle. Which shall be, Wretch? The great hero defeated by a pup, or the great hero who beats up children? The story ends with Sonic angrily snapping and running towards Tails, saying, you want a pounding? You'll get a pounding! Wow, he's in trouble now. This issue is by Ian Flynn. Okay, it makes sense that Amadeus would get used to not being under a monarchy after all his time in the Ben Planet Wheel World, but the way he's acting and talking is just creepy. He blames the royal family for a whole bunch of stuff that's not their fault. It's more Eggman's fault than anything. Sometimes he's all in shadow like Patch Boys at his worst, and it's weird to think that after he got himself roboticized trying to stop Robotnik from removing the king from power, he's now leading a riot to remove the king from power. Has he learned nothing? But on the other hand, monarchy is stupid. It's not a merit-based system by any means, but neither is electing your leader based on a popularity contest. Amadeus would be much easier to sympathize with if he got any sort of confirmation that most of the Acorn rulers were either incompetent or corrupt. Instead, he's protesting against a system that works just fine for no reason. It's change for the sake of change. I'd expect Ian Flynn to try to keep things as close to the original early issues as possible, considering he brought back Freedom HQ from the very early issues, as well as Sally's short hairstyle just for nostalgia's sake, even though she isn't at all in the same position of power as she was in the beginning of the comic, so it's just like, oh, she has a short hairstyle now, that means she's back to normal. Right. And even the new Nanite City looks just like Knothole. The only thing remotely making Amadeus's protest look good is that Elias isn't the one really in power, it's the king, who wants to get half the city punished severely. I mean, that obviously has to be stopped. But ultimately I can't side with Amadeus too much here, he's just creeping me out. But I can understand why Tails sides with him and feels betrayed that Sonic's inexplicably not loyal enough to him to side with him. He's his father. That's it, that's all that naive kid needs. And it's refreshing seeing the two get into a heated argument and disagreement for once. They're supposed to be best friends, but maybe that's why moments like this need to happen to really highlight that and remind us why we should be thankful for their close friendship. If anyone's acting out of character and out of line, it's Sonic for not siding with Tails. Blame Sally for that one. He wouldn't be so traditionalistically attached to the royal family otherwise.